actually watch his videos, and I claim that I know him. So I'm going to share my screen again, because for some reason I thought not sharing my screen would get me out of my presentation. But we're going to exit this presentation. So I'm going to show you the QR code actual website that I told you about. This is where you would choose what kind of data you are going to need the QR code for. The YouTube image file PDF, if you actually like purchase a membership to this, you can use those files. The website URL is free. And again, I'll show you on the presentation here. If I go to share this with anyone, you can get the link to view it, and it is the URL link. So this is just one of the websites that I use, and you can see where you can even create a visual QR code, which is kind of cool. There are some free ones. There are some other ones that you have to have a membership for. This is another one that I have used, and you just put your URL in here, and then it will generate a QR code and you download it. One recommendation that I do have, because you're seeing my screen right here, you can see how I downloaded some other QR codes this morning, and they give me this really long number. What you want to do is just go in and rename it. So you can see that I've renamed this particular QR code Tiger King, because we all know that you have been binge watching Joe Exotic. For 7 hours of your life during this pandemic, you have watched Joe Exotic. And I told myself I was going to open up this webinar by saying, hey, all you cool cats and kittens. But then I really think that she killed her husband, so I didn't want to do that. Sorry. And I can't see your response for it because I shut all of you guys off too. So I know that it's much like when I flip my classroom and I pre-record the lessons for my students. I'm just pretending that they're laughing and that they're all getting my jokes. So that's what I'm doing right now for you guys. I'm going to go back into this presentation right now. And these are just the tips of, again, most of them are going to give you the option of a file type, just making sure that it's linked to a URL. If you find yourself using the QR codes often, then you can, that first site I showed you will have a monthly membership that you can pay. And that is one thing that I do when I'm going to be using a lot of QR codes. So I am, for just a moment, I'm sorry if you hear the background of my children right now, because they're not staying outside and I don't know what they're watching on their tablets. So double check your sharing options when you do share these particular files. You want to make sure that your sharing options are available to anybody who has the link. And that was how you copied the link in the first document. Make sure that after you download the QR codes that you rename them. I promise you, you'll forget that 7-digit number that came after the QR code. And then you will have to constantly be checking the QR codes. And then still double check the QR code after you insert them. So these three down here are some funny little jokes, at least I hope they are. And I didn't quite check the order of them. So who knows what you're gonna get when you click on them. It's a surprise. Obviously you can tell that one of them is Tiger King. So yeah, it's fun. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of enjoyed the 7 hours. So for the Google Forms, there are some things that you will need to think about before you actually make the form. In this picture right here, you can see that I've got this nice little crazy flow sheet going on, or a flow chart going on. But what you really want to think about before you even get started is what type of end goal are you really assessing? And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. And hopefully we've got somebody there. Let me get it on speaker view so I can, oh, that's not going to let me see myself. What I've done though is I have gotten just a basic sheet of paper, wrote my scenario up top, and then to let you guys know, and you can't, read backwards, but what are you assessing? So are you trying to get them to critically think? Are you trying to get them to an actual diagnosis? Or are you just trying to walk them through a particular part of whatever your curriculum is? So in sports medicine in particular, when we are doing an evaluation, and I know that within the other medical fields you do this too, you get a really good history first. That history has got so many components to it that that's actually what I will get a lot of my students to start thinking about first. I'm not going to let a high school student start manipulating somebody's knee or testing for an ACL or anything like that. These are skills that are much later. Athletic training in particular is now at, and you see my naked child behind me during the video. So with this, I don't want the skills to be performed until they know how to get there. The example that I've got within the Google slide is just getting them to, hey, what do you think it could be? Within sports medicine, I say, what do you think it could be? And then what are the tests that you need to do? Or what type of palpation are you looking for? What are you going to look for in particular? With nursing, with our CNAs, you can take them to that step of, hey, this is how the patient is presenting. These are the vital signs. What do you need to look for? A lot of the respiratory things right now, students understand that COVID-19 is affecting the lungs primarily. We've got a speaker who, that telephone call again. So with that, they need to really understand that the nurses and those people on the floor are having to watch their O2 stats. And they forget that. They realize that it is one of the vital signs, but they forget that that's what they're really looking for. So this could be used as a guidance for that. So with this scenario, at least she's got her Leo on now as she rocks behind me. With this scenario, what are you trying to get at? And so down here at the bottom, all you would do is really just write your endpoint. And you want to have 4 different options. One is going to be the correct one, and then the other 3 is just like whatever you want. So for this, on my assessment, I can put, I'll just do what are the tests needed. And I can't pause this as I write like I do with my edgy creation. So I'm going to write it kind of sloppy, but you can see I just did that right down here. The other options would be anything from, do we transport directly to the physician without splitting? Do we do this? Do we do that kind of thing? The scenario up top is going to be, what is your situation that you are giving them? And I'm going to take over the screen again. So in this scenario right here, you can see that I have written a 4-year-old comes into your clinic for a same-day sick visit. The mother states the fever started Monday morning / early afternoon, and it is currently a Wednesday. The little girl has been less energetic over the past few days. What are your first steps? As you go through this scenario, you see these numbers off here to the side. Those numbers are going to help me keep track of where am I going next. And we're going to exit out of the presentation. And this is where I'm really excited that you guys can actually see my screen versus just, you know, the pictures. So I've named this Google form HPI1, you know, history of present illness, for those that may not teach the terminology, or if we have any of our general ed teachers in here, they may be wondering why it's a hippopotamus, number 1. But as you can see, the directions are just, you know, using the below scenario, obtain a history of present illness, physical examination, and best outcome for this one. And there is my initial, this is what I'm looking for. On the Google Forms, what you will need to do is you'll type this, and then these are obviously going to be your options, okay? So when I click on that question, you can see what I've gotten here. Let me kind of click down here. The answer, if you are going to choose number 1, ask the mother if anything has helped, or decrease the action, or you know, the fever, that kind of thing, then I'm going to go to this section. How you get there is very easy. And so what I'm going to do up here, so I'm going to mess the form up for just a minute and just to show you. This is the initial how you, or what you see when you open up a Google form. To add a question within this section, you use the add question button. I think most of us know that, especially now, a month into distance learning, I think we do. If you don't, I can't see the chat right now, but like I said, I got my phone near me, and I know my good friend Katrina or Melissa, who have my number, they can shoot me any questions if you guys are getting lost and you need me to stop and regroup. I really don't mind. I just want to make sure that you completely understand this, you know, and so you can go ahead and start using it after the webinar today. So this is where you add the question. And I'll just add like I'm adding a question within that section. And I can put, what are your hobbies? Well, I don't even know how to spell today. And then, you know, gymnastics, because that's something that my daughters are, so gymnast. We also do horseback riding, because they chose the 2 most expensive sports. And then we'll put soccer in there because that's what I do. I want this to be a required question. That first question needs to be a required question. The other ones do not. If you have all of your questions as required questions, then it messes up the whole flow of everything. So with this is a normal, this is how we get started. I, again, want to make it required for the first one. Right now, this is automatically going to send me to the next section. What I want to do is give them options. To do that, these 3 dots down here, you just click, and you can either go to a description or go to section based on answer. And that's what you want to pick. Go to section based on answer. When you do that, oh, okay, some people are wondering why some QR codes expire. The ones that I have not experienced them expiring. And I actually am using a presentation that has been modified from the national consortium this past September, October. Nancy's going to hurt me because I don't remember when we had that in St. Louis. I do know that it was cold and I wore flip-flops to dinner and my feet were frozen. But they, I don't know why. I guess some websites would expire. Again, I'm going to go back and show you real quick. This qrstuff.com, this is the one that I use just about 95% of the time, and I've never had them expire on me. I download them, and as long as the link is still correct, my QR codes work. So the only thing I can think of is that maybe you moved that file and that link is no longer going where it needs to. So you may just have to double check your links on that. This is the website that I use. I guess one of the questions was, what app do I use? I don't really do this on my iPad. The way I use QR codes is I love to put them up in the school and actually have my students go find them and say, hey, the first 3 people to find this QR, I'll put 3 together, and once they find it, they scan it, they take the QR code with them, and then they come back to the classroom. When they do that, it's a scenario that has something to do with that location. I know that you guys do not have 9th graders who make poor choices at the school. I'm sure your school is full of wonderful, wonderful little 9th graders. However, at my school, we have 2 levels to the building, and one of our very fantastic 9th graders thought that it would be a great idea to slide down the banister one day. I'm sure he saw it in movies. Pretty sure they did it like in Home Alone or something like that, and he thought it was a great idea until he fell off and he broke his arm. And so that is a scenario that I use with my higher level athletic training students or sports medicine students. I also use it for my health science students as a first aid, how are you splinting, who are you calling, what's our emergency action plan. Sorry, I get, thirsty during my presentations. So I use that in a couple of different ways. For the medical terminology class, I've used it as these are the terms that need to be used on the medical side. How would you relate that then to the parent who doesn't understand the medical language? And so they take the medical terminology and then they translate it. But it's fun for the students because they get to go throughout the school and look for things. This is one, that's the responses. So on this knee injury, I'll show you. This was one that I did put up in the school somewhere. I put it near our weight room where one of our football coaches teaches out of. And that was something that they, found, they brought back. They worked in a group of 3. They only had to submit 1 response for me. And that was something that was fun for them because they got out of the classroom for a few minutes to come back. This QR code monkey, I'm not sure if it's an app as well for your Chromebook or anything like that. I do know that my daughter uses a Chromebook and they do have QR code makers kind of built in that the district has pushed. So your district may be a little bit different in what you're seeing. So I'm going to get back on topic because I like to get off topic quite easily. So here I can, if this first option is a gymnast. Once I've clicked here, and again, I'm going to go to section based on answer. For this first answer, I can pick any one of the sections. Now, this looks daunting, and it looks crazy, and it looks like you're gonna need one heck of a margarita on Cinco de Mayo to get through all the numbering, but that's why in the presentation I said have a flow sheet. This flow sheet with all the numbers. So I know when I'm looking at my flow sheet, it's right there beside me as I do this. This particular scenario written down is currently at my school, which is closed for teachers. But we've got the picture, so we know that this is number 1, number 2, 3, and 4 are the options. Number 1's answers should take me to either 3, 4, or 5. When we go back to this, you'll see in parentheses the numbers. And that's one thing I remember when you are following your flow sheet, you label the, and I'll go down here, the title of the sections that you need are those numbers. Okay, so hopefully I haven't lost anybody. Again, I can't really see the chat. If Katrina or Melissa need to text me because people are lost and confused, that's okay. We'll get right back on the correct path. So with this, I'm just going to send the gymnast to section, or to my answer 1. I'm going to send horseback to 2, and we're going to send soccer to 3. If I wanted to add another question to the same section, again, I go to the plus button. To add a section, I'm going to click this square that has been split into 2 rectangles. When I do that, it adds another section. The title of this section is whatever number on your flow sheet. So I'm just going to put 10 because I know that on that flow sheet it did not have a 10. And it says that that's the 10th one. Yeah, so I will actually show you what the students will see in just a moment. And I'm also going to show you what you see as results, because the results look a little different from a normal Google form. Okay, so again, this is just showing you how to add the section. Once you add the section, the description can be, she broke her arm. And that's true in my 4-year-old's case because she's a gymnast and she thought she could do that. With this, within that section, you add the question. What color cast? And then, you know, blue. We had a purple one during the course of her casting. And of course, we had to have a pink one. So do you need to make the sections first? No, I actually make the sections as I go. That's one thing that I found easiest. So I'll make the section, and then because this one is not the first question, I'm not going to make it required. I'm going to click here, go to section based on answer, and then, you know, all of this. What I do is, as I go through the first 4 options, the first 4, let me actually get rid of this. I'm going to delete that section so I can see what I'm actually working on. And I'm going to delete this question so it's not messing me up here. And so when you see it as a student, you'll understand. As I go through this, what I've done is I go back and double check. So as you can see right now, all of these options say continue to next section. For this one, I want to actually put it to, I think that answer was 3. This one's going to take me, we'll just put it to 4, and so forth. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to show you what it looks like on the student side. And so I've got the knee injury one up right here. This is one, this is one that my students created. I have them create them too. Once they get to that higher level of thinking and they truly understand the process of finding a differential, or the process of getting that HPI. I put them into groups. They found their injury with a QR code somewhere in the school or on a sheet of paper that I've given them at random, because we all know that if you're handing things out at the door when the students come in, they go, oh, I need to have a heart card because that one's got a heart card, or I need to have a diamond card because they've got diamonds, and that may be how we're mixing, you know, grouping them together. Or you have an 8, I need to find an 8 so I can be in the group with you. They can't do that with QR codes because they're so intricate, they can't tell the difference between them, and it really keeps me on track of they're not switching the groups that they think are random, but they're really not, because I'm pairing them up a certain way. Okay, so this is one that my students created, and I apologize if I don't remember what was coming next. So a football player tried to rush a defender, planted his foot. He fell on the ground with severe knee pain. What would you do next? You know, let's just, I do remember this one because they put pray for him. And I was like, really, guys? And when I grade the ones they do, I do take the time to go through all the answers and see how they formed it. So I was like, well, let's just see what happens when we pray for him. And it may take a moment. And then, you know, the answer is you get sued for forcing religion, because at that point they had gone through, you know, the whole legal and ethical issue. They know that in school we can't really talk about our religion and force it upon them. So, you know, I'm sued, I'm done. What should I have done? And that is, you know, either pinpoint the pain or palpate. We'll say palpate. Again, I would have asked what they heard first, but they're the students. And so then it took me back to here, you know, and now I'm going to say, oh, well, let's put a splint on it. And then, you know, it says that straightening the knee hurts. What do you do? And you can see that it, you know, just takes me through a couple of scenarios with this. So that's what the students are going to see. They're only going to see one part at a time, so they can't skip ahead or anything like that. And I know I've only got just a few more minutes remaining before we get to all the questions. So I'm going to show you what the teacher is going to look like. This is for the knee injury one. I'll show you real quick. Not that one. I must have taken it off my screen. But this is one that I created for them. I can see, and I took my students' names off of it so I can really show you. I can see that they were great and that every single one of them knew at some point, and because this is B, it goes with that first section, okay? And I'll know because of the questions and how they're ordered. So, oh, hold on one. Okay, I'll get to that question in just a moment. So with the results, I can see that all of my students knew that with an ACL injury or any knee injury, you really need to ask them, did you hear or feel anything? What do you do after that? Well, some of them you can see palpated the knee. Some of them moved him to the athletic training room next. They all knew that at some point they're going to rule out the special test or perform special tests to rule out some injuries. These particular students, so 4 through 12, did it first. This kiddo chose another response to get him to, they already knew that it was like an ACL ligament sprain and possibly a meniscus injury. This one, you know, chose the option 8, got them there, and then this is what they thought. Through this, I can see that the majority of my students truly understood the mechanism of injury for an ACL. They knew that the popping is a classic sign of it. And then with this, the medial collateral ligament, it was tender on the inside of the knee was one of the answers. And they got that. These two over here, they didn't choose this one didn't choose the ACL, and this one took them a little bit longer. And they also wanted to just splint and send to the doctor. So that's something where with these students, I can go back and say, hey, I noticed you wanted to splint before you perform some special tests. How can we get back to what you should be doing? So that's just something that I choose. And so this is one question that Katrina was sending me. Hold on one second. I did not get the section options with my first question. Only go to the first section, submit form. Okay, so let's do this. I am going to share my screen again, and I'm going to start a brand new one. So you can see my drive is kind of crazy, but that's good because it means I'm either highly organized or a little crazy for having so much in there. So when I'm creating a new one, Google Forms. Okay. With this one, I'm just going to title it as test, because we're just playing around. There's my thing, you know, use the, and I have to make sure I know how to spell scenario, because that's always a word that trips me up. I apologize for those people that can spell that word all the time. Below to figure out what test. Okay. So this one would be my actual scenario, and we can just put a 4-year-old female fell at the playground, and we'll do complains of arm pain but not crying. Okay, so that's my scenario. That's what I'm actually just giving them. Nothing else. It is multiple choice. This is the initial scenario, so I'm going to make it required. Just like with any other multiple choice options, you're going to put them in. So the first option is, I'm just going to put, is she, oh, why? I don't know why it's on caps. Is she allergic to anything? Okay, so that may be something that the emergency room asks initially. Another option could be past medical history. So again, I don't know. Okay, so past medical history, and then we'll just do another one of, have you given her anything yet? So right now, this makes it required. They're going to answer it. I know that I need another section. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 3 sections. Up here, I now choose go to section based on answer. So this one I'm going to send to, this is our first section. I'm going to send it down to number 2. This one will go to 3. And this one will go to 4. I've got a new laptop and it's kind of crazy with the mouse pad. So section 2 is going to be the answer from the initial scenario. However you want to number it on your flow sheet. So answer 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then that's going to send me to either 2, 3, 4, or 5. And I'm going to just show you what I wrote down quickly because I know I'm running out of time. Okay, so on here, you can kind of see, this would be the answer, you know, is she allergic to anything? I didn't write it because we're going kind of quick. Is she allergic to anything? And then these would be the answers. No allergies. You know, the parent could say, why are you asking me this? My kid is hurt. Or, you know, one of the, oh my gosh, my kid is allergic to 20 million things, and you have to write them all down. Okay. Or once you get this answer, where are you going to go next? And so that's why the flow chart, and again, we didn't prep it in advance. And this I'm going to take back over quickly. I know Nancy's probably freaking out because I only have 10 minutes left. Sorry, Nancy. I apologize, it's recorded. Okay, this is going to be the answer that I'm going to next, so I'm just gonna put, 1 on my sheet. And then the description is that answer, and it was the allergies. I'm gonna put, she is allergic to dairy and soy, okay? You add the question, what are you gonna do next? Well, the next things you're going to do are, what else do you need? And an HPI, okay? We're going to switch that back to multiple choice. I can go back to the, have you given her anything? I can go to, have you noticed any bruising? And I'll just put bruising. And then, another question that I could ask them is, do you have a preference of doctor? So I actually do have a preferred doctor, and that preferred doctor was in the emergency room before we even got out of triage. Because, hypothetically, this may have already have happened to me. So go to section based on answer. So for this one right here, have you given her anything? The one thing you really, really, really have to make sure is that this is going to section 4. So anytime that is going to be an answer, and I said anything here instead of meds, but this has to go to section 4 as well. If you do not send it to the right section, then it is something where you and the student are going to, I'm sorry, Nancy just sent a text saying scavenger hunt. This is going to send you to the same section. If not, you're going to be confused, the student will be confused, and it's just not worth it. On this is a different example. So hopefully that kind of helped out with where you go with the scenarios. This is the scenario that I used at the national conference. Oddly enough, I also presented on a Wednesday for that one. You can see that I have got dotted lines that take me all over the page. And it really does remind me of one of the Cosmopolitan quizzes at the end, or the 17 magazine, because we all know that even though we're in our 30s or 25 in my case, we still read that and we take those quizzes, and it's like a BuzzFeed question, except it's written out, and it's, you've got one, well, now it's going to send you to here, and then it sends you here, and then at the very end it's like, oh my gosh, you should have married Brad Pitt. And yeah, I would have loved to have married Brad Pitt, but that's not what happened. So the flow chart, and I showed you, a quick one of how I added those things. This is really what helps me. Scavenger hunts. We mentioned that in the description. So the scavenger hunts is something real quick with the QR codes and the scenarios. With the scenario, what I have done, and this is where it gets, you really have to plan this out. So if you want to do this, it is fantastic. Plan it now when we've got some downtime and you don't have your kiddos right there in front of you begging for it. I take each one of these answers and I create a QR code for it. So this one right here, these answers, I would have QR codes for. And the QR code would take them to one form. So you end up having 20 Google Forms or 20 Google documents for it. But you put the QR code, it's okay, if you get the answer for 2 and you choose this, you need to go to this part of the building and find the next, thing that you do. Or if you think you need to do this, then you go here in the building. And it's a lot of fun. I do it with cardiovascular, and it's not a scenario within cardiovascular. I do it so they learn the blood flow. I will give each little group a starting point within the heart. I give them their QR code. They scan it. They answer a question about that particular thing. And then based on their answer and where they should go next for the blood flow, let's say they started in the right atrium, the question would be putting them through the valve. And then depending on where they think they need to go next, that's where they go in the school. So they'll have, a little sheet saying that the right ventricle is going to be near our assistant principal's office. You'll find that QR code. Or if you think that you go to the left ventricle, then the left ventricle is going to be, near the PE offices. Or if you think that you're going to go to the lungs next, then, that's going to be upstairs with outside the door of our physics teacher. And that's where it gets really fun, because they don't know where they're going next, as far as they can't follow the group near them. They didn't start in the same place. And then they end up coming back and saying, oh my gosh, well, I got here first, and that next question didn't make sense because then it led me here. And then they always end up correcting each other. I do give my principal a heads up that we're going to be doing this, and I don't do it like on a day when we're testing for MAP, or that's an elementary school. But if we are giving the SAT that day at our school, I don't do it on those days because I kind of like my job. And I do it on a day when it's okay for my students to be out in the hallways and moving around without it being a big disruption. So I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry, Nancy. Okay. It looks like choose your own adventure. Great stuff. Yeah, it is great stuff. It really is. It's so much information, and it's crazy. I know that Katrina put my email address in there. Please email me directly if you have any questions with this, or if you would like me to have a Zoom meeting with you or a Google Hangout meeting and walk you through the steps with your scenario that you create. Or if you want to use it as a scavenger hunt, how do you actually go through and pick the different parts of the school? So I'm not sure. Nancy, did I answer most of the questions?
Yes, I think so. I think we were able to text you some, and then you got to a place where you could see the chat feature as well, right?
Yeah, because I'm a little ADD, and I check things and I get squirrely. So,
well, that's nice of you to offer if anybody wants to contact you directly, because you have nowhere to go and nothing to do, right? Like
that's
everybody
right.
else in the entire world. But we just appreciate your expertise and your willingness to share this today. I will remind everybody on the call that we have one more webinar for this school year, and that will be next Wednesday. And it's really going to be a time of sharing. We're going to have a little bit of a motivational speaker for teachers. We know that everybody needs a little uplifting at this time, so there'll be an opportunity for you to get a little motivation or a little encouragement during the first 30 minutes, and then the final 30 minutes will be sharing, you telling us how you are celebrating your students, or you hearing from other teachers ways that they are celebrating their students through this time of disappointment and missing out on all the things that went along with the end of the year type functions and activities. So thank you all for being here. Remember, the webinar will be posted. And Karen, thank you so much. And if you should have gotten information about signing up for next week, but if you need that, you can send me an email. Remember, if you need to email me, and we'll get that out to you. Thank you again, Karen, and everybody have a great rest of the day.
Everybody was able to join us today, and please remember, to stay safe and join us next week for the motivational speaker. I promise she's a lot funnier than I am and can give you way more tips than I can.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.